if there's anything else that's been patched besides that Blu-ray Userland exploit on the PS4. Now, another thing for PS4 and PS5, we have this new app patching system for PS4 and PS5 here from Illusion-E or Illusion YY. So PS Patch System, so this is a way to apply your game patches, and it works on the PS5 as well as PS4. So basically the idea here, it says that you start the ALF loader on your PS4 or PS5, which is what happens when you run the jailbreak, and then you send this particular file, this patch bundle loader for your platform on port 9021, so you inject the payload, and then there is the patch1.zip file, which contains all of the patches, the XML files, and you essentially extract that zip file to the data folder on the hard drive. So in the data user patches folder, you extract all of the patches for your PS4 and PS5 in that location, and then you can open the web page on the console itself on 127.0.0.1 on Coolon 23900, or on your computer or phone that's connected to the same network, you just go to the PS4 or PS5's IP address with port 23900, and it should take you over to the web panel where you can then apply whatever patches you want, and then when you run the game, those patches will be applied on your game. These patches are things like 60 FPS patches, unlock the frame rate, patches that do things like disable motion blur or film grain or other, graphical effects that you don't like, that you can disable. There's developer menus that you can apply and many other useful features. Lower the resolution to push the frame rates higher. So those are the kind of patches that we're talking about here for PS4 and PS5. You can see it's confirmed working on 3.0 to 11.70, but it's not been confirmed to work on higher firmwares yet. That's something also for PS4 and PS5. We also have another big release, which is UltraC0re. So this is effectively a port of the LuaCore exploits that used to Star Wars Racer Revenge from Gegina. That was the only game that could be used to load the Poops kernel exploit, which was a kernel exploit that required the dupe privilege C-Skull, which unfortunately most other Userland exploits don't have, and they cannot utilize that, and that's why the Poops kernel exploit only works with a select number of Userland exploits, like the web browser exploits, the Blu-ray exploit, and of course the LuaCore that uses Star Wars Racer Revenge. However, we now have another game with this UltraC0re exploit, which is Jack X Combat Racing, so that game can now also be used to load the Poops kernel exploit using this UltraC0re exploit. So again, it works very similar to the Star Wars Racer Revenge. You basically just have to have a physical copy of the game on older firmwares to be able to run it on older firmwares. It is only for PS5 with this initial release. It does explicitly state PlayStation 5. It does not mention PS4 anywhere here, so it does not appear like it supports PS4. Maybe PS4 support can be added in the future, but for now it seems to be PS5 only. So generally you can restore a backup file as normal to get the modified save file installed. If you have an activated account, you can resign the save files that this comes with. There's a save file for the US version of the game and the European version of the game, and these contain encrypted saves that you can resign using garlicsaves.com. So all you do is copy the save files into the resign section on Garlic Saves and select your profile to resign the save file to. Copy those saves onto your USB drive and then use the USB drive to move them from the USB to the console storage. Once you've done that and you have the save files installed, you can launch the game. I believe it needs to be version 1.04 of the game. Don't think it works with the base version, so you can use version 1.04 of the game, load the game up, and then load the profile. It'll then come up with UltraC0re that you can select, and then you go into adventure mode. Once in adventure modes, it'll start playing a cutscene. You can press triangle to skip it, and then it should come up with the listener listening on port 8888, and you can then send the poops.lua file to jailbreak the console over the network using a payload injector like netcat GUI by entering 8888 as the port number, the PS5's IP address in the IP section, and of course drag in the poops.lua payload, and then you can inject that payload to send it to the console to run the exploit. Now the thing with this is that it's not super useful for right now. It's something that could be useful in the future if another kernel exploit similar to the poopsploit comes out that requires that privileged syscall that the other Userland exploits don't have. So this could certainly be a way to load a jailbreak like that in the future for higher firmwares, so it could certainly be useful for that, but it doesn't really have much of a use right now, because we can only jailbreak up to 12.70, and we have, P2JB that we can use to unpatch the Blu-ray jailbreak to then use the Poops kernel exploit with a Blu-ray disc, which is going to be cheaper than trying to get one of these games that's already going up in price. It's the same on PS4. Even if this gets ported and works on PS4, you still have the issue of the fact that we can just use the PlayStation Vue jailbreak or a Blu-ray disc jailbreak on the latest jailbreakable firmwares on the PS4 right now, so it doesn't really help for PS4 yet either until there's a new jailbreak on a higher firmware that might require a game like this to be able to load that exploit. So that's the situation we're in with that. We also have a update to the Netflix in Hack exploit, which previously only used the lapse kernel exploit, so only worked up to 10.1. We now have a version that's been ported to work with P2JB, Patience to Jailbreak, which of course takes up to 50 minutes. With this, I think it takes longer, potentially 70 minutes to load using Netflix. But the advantage of using Netflix and Hack, and of course it will only work up to 12.40 with Netflix because the Netflix application does not work past 12.40, so you can only use this up to 12.40, and it takes longer than the YouTube jailbreak. So the only advantage really to using this over YouTube jailbreak is the fact that if you have an activated account, then you can install this without having to reset your console and restore a backup file, because instead you can basically use the extended storage method, which effectively works by writing an extended storage image that contains the Netflix app to one of your USB devices, plugging that into the PS5 so it appears as extended storage for the console, and you can then move the Netflix application from your extended storage drive to the console storage to get the right version of Netflix installed, then set up the proxy settings to use the publicly available proxy server from Earth Onion, which then allows the Netflix app to be used to run the jailbreak. You load the Netflix application. If you have an activated account, it will let you launch it, and you'll then be able to get that up and running with the jailbreak without having to reset your console. The other good thing is that once Netflix is fully installed and you have the jailbreak running, you will then be able to manually install the YouTube jailbreak without having to reset your console as well, and then you can just use the YouTube jailbreak from then on to jailbreak in the future with the 50-minute jailbreak, and that way you didn't have to reset your account in order to achieve that. I have a video that covers that whole process with the previous lapse exploit. It's effectively the same process here, except you have to wait longer because you're running P2JB instead of lapse, which is a slower exploit that takes a lot longer. But besides that, the process should be the same. So anyway, that's another thing that's come out there with the Netflix application. Now, it seems that we might get better stability when running P2JB soon, because Gedjine does appear to have improved the stability of P2JB in the LuaCore exploit, and it looks like other developers are considering porting those changes over to the other methods, which should overall improve stability when running the P2JB exploits with things like the YouTube jailbreak and other methods. So that is good to see there as well. And in addition to that, we also have an update to Elf Arsenal, and Elf Arsenal has got a new update, 1.6.19, and this version seems to have added back the void shell layout to the web panel. So the web panel was swapped over to kind of resemble void shell's design, and it wasn't very stable with the initial release, so it got reverted back to the older version, and now we have a proper release with the void shell layout that appears to be a lot more stable. So the web panel is looking a lot cleaner with the void shell design. It has the proper void shell file manager implemented, it seems. One issue I have found, though, is that when you try to upload files directly from your computer, instead of transferring them from a USB to the internal storage, if you use the upload folder or upload file setting, it does seem to error whenever uploading a file. Hopefully that's an issue that can be fixed fairly soon so that we can have the full file manager functionality built in here. But it's good to see we're getting more improvements added here into Elf Arsenal. And another development is that a lot of accounts on X/Twitter that cover PlayStation jailbreaking news in any capacity seems to be getting purged from Twitter/X. It's unclear if this is some kind of, mass reporting bug where somebody is just, mass reporting accounts and causing stuff like this to happen, or if this is actually just like some kind of moderation bot that's gone a step too far, and this may be just being a little bit too aggressive in enforcing certain policies. I'm not sure which one it is, but this is definitely an issue, so if you're wondering why a lot of the accounts are news this kind of slowed down, on Twitter especially, it's because a lot of accounts are, banned from posting. I'm not even allowed to, make any post right now. My account is completely locked because of this issue here. You can see this is a pretty tame post here. Yet another P2JB implementation using UltraC0re to jailbreak up to 12.70 with the game Arcade Spirits: The New Challengers, and just a link to the YouTube video. That's all that's in there. And even that got taken down, as you can see. So my account is locked. Lots of other accounts on Twitter and X are currently locked because of this. So again, still unclear as to why this is happening, if this is just something that we have to deal with now with Twitter and X, where they're just not going to allow you to talk about jailbreaking the PS5 or anything like that whatsoever. It's just not allowed on their platform now. If it was Sony that's trying to enforce this and going through Twitter to get these taken down, that would surprise me because other platforms don't seem to be affected right now. It just seems to be X that's actually doing this. So anyway, we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Hopefully this is something that is unintentional and will get reversed in the future, but we'll just have to sit tight and kind of keep our fingers crossed that this is not something that has been done intentionally. But anyway, that's basically it here for this one, so hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and as always, I will hopefully see